Hi folks, Thomas Henson here with thomashenson.com, and today we've got a special episode for you. I'm going to tell you about a book that I just read called Shoe Dog. And so it's about the creation of Nike and how the company that we know now as Nike with, merchandising, all the apparel, and is just a worldwide leader in footwear, especially when you start thinking about major athletes and contracts that they have with them. And so it's a book all about how Phil Knight and his team started Nike. So find out more right after this. So today I'm doing a book review on Shoe Dog. So it's a memoir. It's called a memoir of the creator of Nike and how Phil Knight built a team and built a company that's worth billions of dollars. So think about the most famous athletes in the world. So Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, tons of, Olympic stars from around the world and, involved in anything from tennis all the way to football. I mean, King Griffey Jr., the names just go on and on. And they started out just as a shoe company. And in fact, this is a little tidbit that I learned while reading the book. And this is one of the reasons that I'm recommending it, because there's so much in this book. So Nike, the name Nike, it actually used to be Blue Ribbon. So it started out as Blue Ribbon, started out as a dream by Phil Knight after graduating from graduate school. He went through business school at Stanford, and he was an athlete as an undergrad, and he wanted to continue, he wanted to continue running and being a part of running community. So he had this dream, and it was a paper that he had written about how to disrupt the shoe industry in America. And so that paper that he had in grad school, he thought he did pretty well with it, and so he had a dream to do that, and he actually did it. I mean, so he started by booking a trip. So he wanted to do kind of before he started his real career. He thought he wanted to give it one shot, and so he booked a trip kind of around the world. Talked to his dad about being able to see things before settling down and getting a job, and kind of like your last hurrah. So a lot of people have that, and so on that trip, he actually stopped by Japan and met with a shoe manufacturer there. And started a business relationship there, and that's what really started him being able to start selling shoes in America. And so, time grows. It's actually a startup culture. So for me, it was really interesting to hear about this company. And for me, when I grew up, Michael Jordan, just do this and be like Mike. That's how I thought of Nike, right? And there was some controversy, in the 90s about where the shoes were manufactured and some of the working conditions, and they actually touch on it in the book too. But for me, I always thought of Nike as this big, huge enterprise, not like this little, feisty startup. But throughout the book, you hear about how they were a feisty startup, and they pushed off going public, so having an IPO quite a few times, because they were like, hey, we don't have to wear suits and ties to work, and we don't want to disrupt our culture. They're like, we have a culture, and it's kind of like what we hear about whenever you think of Apple and a lot of the startups, going on right now. That's how Nike was, and now they are a big, and they're an enterprise company. But it's just kind of amazing that they pushed off going IPO so many different times. And now you look at it, they're like a billion-dollar company, multi-billion-dollar company, right? All around the world. So I thought that was really cool. There's a lot of tidbits. So if you've read Walter Isaacson's book around Steve Jobs and kind of his life and a lot of his career in Apple, you'll see a lot of similarities. One thing that was really interesting too is Phil Knight was more of an introvert, and so it was just kind of funny to hear his management style and his critique on himself as well as a management style, saying, wasn't really big on encouragement at times, but, for him to be an introvert, he had to break out of his shell when they were going through troubling times, because everybody was looking to him for a leader. So I think it's a must read just because of, what Nike has meant, for the shoe industry and how it disrupted it. And it's really cool to see that perspective. I will, another couple points too. You are just getting one side of it too. So if you're, going back to making that comparison with the Steve Jobs book I read by Walter Isaacson, wasn't written by Steve Jobs, but you get to see both sides of it. Where with Phil Knight, you're really just looking through his lens. But it's a really cool book. I recommend going out and finding it and learning as much as you can from it. Right. So that's all. Make sure you subscribe so that you never miss, doing Isolon tips. I've got some interviews that we're doing. I'm doing these book reviews too. And honestly, if there's a book that you've read that I haven't reviewed yet, or you want to suggest it to me, put it in the comment section here, and I'll read it and I'll give you a shout out too. We can kind of go through it. So make sure you subscribe, and I will see you next time.